Today, Doomsvince threatened to end the game. I had my notebook, but nothing to review. As the hours wore on, I began to realize how serious my predicament was. Ever since I walked right into Doomsvince's trap in the open grave and read ahead, I've noticed a discernible pattern to his wide array of machinations. Over the last few days, he's been gradually trying to convince me to give up on my life and on my family. It started just by planting the idea in my head, tricking me into reading Spawn 185 and making me experience the grave, suggesting my ending up there is inevitable. He knew that wouldn't be enough, though, nor did he think I was messed up enough yet to quit on getting out of here when he came to me in the white void in the guise of my wife. But still, the idea loomed over me. As the scenery changed, I adapted. I became complacent, conditioned to relax now that I thought I knew the game. I feel like Pavlov's dog. And now I've been in the same location for 3 straight days. After thinking I could sit here and take anything Doomsvince threw at me, he's done the last thing I ever expected. He's changed the rules. No more comics, no more reviewing, no more Spawn. As more cans of Mountain Dew appeared around me, it became harder and harder to resist. For only a moment, I thought the unthinkable. Why not give in? Doomsvince clearly has full control of this reality. He has more than proven it. Who's to say he was ever going to hold up his end of the bargain? Who's to say I wouldn't drive myself insane writing about Spawn for a year and he'd still leave me in that graveyard or even bury me alive anyway, just for a cheap laugh? This kitchen was certainly better than the open grave. But I tried to put those thoughts out of my mind. It's just what he wants. I knew there had to be more to it than that. He wasn't going to make me review for 71 days and suddenly cut me off with no explanation. It had to be another mind game. After an eternity of waiting, something finally happened. I saw my son. Jason appeared and he gave me a choice. I could stay here with him and drink all the Mountain Dew I wanted, never long for anything, enjoy my son at the age he is now forever, or risk never seeing the real Jason or the real Sarah again and continue my work. The decision was harder than you might imagine. This wasn't like when Doomsvince pretended to be my wife. Beyond a bit of a broader vocabulary, Jason was so real, and I was terrified at the prospect that it might be my last chance to even feel like I was with him. Doomsvince was giving me an out. I couldn't take it as much as I wanted to. After all this, I was not going to give up. He made me beg him to return me to the graveyard. Doomsvince finally appeared and said, snickering, I could have gone back anytime I liked. All I had to do was say please. And so I got on my knees and I begged. And now I find myself in a black abyss, hoping this won't be my final entry and that it will end with another review. I've been walking for hours now. I have no way to know how much time I have left to read and write a review, assuming there's a comic waiting for me when I arrive. I see lights in the distance. As I get closer, I can make something out. They spell, welcome home. Some experiences really put things into perspective. And now that I'm almost back, a part of me really does feel home. And I don't like that feeling one bit.
I am Doomsvince, and this is day 72 of Spawn Year.
Is that a timer? I've got less than 10 minutes to read and review this issue, or I'm going to be right back where I started on day 68. I better book it. I would have really enjoyed spending more time in hell before getting to level 9. Well, not more time in my hell, but Spawn's. A little ironic, since my biggest issue with this series at large has been decompression and meandering around real storytelling. But I enjoyed 51 and 52, and it's a shame not to explore more of this really interesting place after the Dullsville Spawn's New York City has so often proved to be. We only really delved into 5 of the 9 levels, if you can even count Larson's contribution. Nevertheless, this is some breathtaking work from Greg Capullo, who draws Malbolgia as a menacing, towering figure who literally makes Spawn look and feel like an ant. Spawn faces a series of trials before he finally goes to Malbolgia himself, including the Spawnified Billy Kincaid, which is quite the letdown. I know he's just a fat, pathetic child killer who had no physical prowess on Earth, and he still looks pretty hilarious as a Spawn, but shouldn't he be surging with power and spoiling for a fight by now? Spawn had his costume technically 5 years longer than Kincaid, but they've at least both been aware of their abilities for about the same amount of time. I like that Spawn really enjoys decapitating Kincaid and kind of wishes he could do it again. But then a narration box says, and so Spawn has passed his test. He takes all of 2 panels to kill a fat slob who clumsily jumps at him like an idiot. What kind of test was that? Congratulations? Then Spawn's faced with something more like an actual trial when Wanda appears in a bikini that looks like she just turned human again after transforming into a purple She-Hulk, and tries to convince Al she committed suicide to be with him. He wants to believe it, of course, and I wish Doomsvince had really been Sarah, but it'd be a lot more convincing if A, they weren't in the 9th level of hell, and B, there weren't suddenly a bunch of Wandas creepily all over him at the same time. This really comes off like McFarlane needed some epic lead-up to Bulgy rather than any especially difficult hurdle Spawn has to jump through. Sure, Spawn's crying because he just had to rip creatures to shreds that remind him of his wife, but like a lot of what Doomsvince has put me through, it's a little obvious. I do really like the idea of the 3 new tools Spawn has accumulated through his journey in hell. Bulgy apparatuses, if you will, to help Spawn in his now slightly less ambiguous role as a Grim Reaper who is expected to harvest souls from Malbolgia's army. He has the Visage of Death, the Black Heart of Death, and the Mark. Oh, come on, Bulgy, resolve that chord. Can't you have more uniform names for your stuff? Why aren't we calling it the Mark of Death? This is all figurative, of course. Spawn's heart's been ripped out before and he didn't love his wife any less. How hard is it to put a necroplasmic tattoo in his chest or rip his whole face off? But this is all about forcing Al to lose his humanity by physically taking away the few things left that made him still feel human. Bulgy has a monologue that lasts half the issue about what makes Al special. His rare love for killing, mixed with his love for Wanda, made his a soul that could have been a huge asset for either heaven or hell, and it's been Al's choice his whole life to choose death over life. What's not working for me at all is how everything that's happened up to this point is treated like it was Malbolgia's plan all along. It's all been leading up to Spawn going back to hell so Malbolgia can put him right back on Earth again, this time with the promise that he won't hurt Wanda. Convoluted is an understatement. The whole idea is that Bulgy must manipulate Spawn into doing what he wants because he can't control him. He'll only be the leader Hell needs if he does it willingly. Malbolgia keeps talking about how he's been slowly putting all this in motion. Why the baby steps? In some ways, this should be issue 1. Why did Bulgy put Spawn on Earth to wander around with superpowers for 50 issues when he could have started with, okay, Simmons, here's the deal. This is Violator. Violator's gonna eat your wife. If you do everything I say, commit atrocities which you seem perfectly happy doing when you were alive, Violator won't eat your wife. Capiche? All this business about making him heartless would be really easy too. Just have Spawn do bad things for you until Wanda's dead. He's got nothing to live for at that point. You could say you own his soul and you upheld your end of the bargain, so he has to keep working for you, and he's a killer who's outlived the only person he cared about, so he probably won't mind all that much. And have we really revealed the big complex mystery between this and 51? Al has good and evil passions, so he could have been drafted by heaven or hell? Really? I'm glad he's being more fleshed out, but that's a character trait, not an earth-shattering revelation that we should have started with, at least past some of the amnesia stuff. I really think I might find myself, at least when it comes to Al, having to look at the first 50 issues as issue 1. Doomsvince, I don't know if you're disappointed by the results of your own little set of trials for me, or if this is just what you wanted, but you haven't gotten rid of me yet. See you tomorrow.